What's up, guys? Dusty Shaw, Holistic Fitness and Nutrition, back for another video. Thank you guys for the kind words on social media about my recent transformation. If you didn't watch my last video, I recommend you go back and watch it. But just, basically, I talked about how I went out to San Diego, and due to my schedule, I wasn't able to train like I needed, and I lost a significant amount of my muscle mass. I got all the way down to the 170s. I got out the first week of October and got back to the weights. Here it is, January 1st. So October, November, December, and just over 3 months, I got back to 230. That's almost 50 pounds. All right. And as you can see, I have very visible abs and veins running through my abdomen. So that's muscle mass, not fat. Now, obviously, that's a great deal of muscle memory. So those muscle cells were already there. They had just shrunk. It's not like I built 50 pounds of new muscle tissue. That's impossible. You can't do that in a year, 2 years, let alone 3 months. So I do want to make that clear. Obviously, that's because I had already been there many times for sustained amounts of time. So the muscle cells were already there. All right. Hypertrophy refers to the growth of muscles. Hyperplasia refers to the creation of new muscle cells. All right. You're not creating that amount of new muscle cells in that short of time. They were there. They had just shrunk from the low calorie diet and lack of training stimulus. Thank you all for the kind words about that. It's got quite a few new book sales because of it. Between that and my clients, those are my best two methods of sales for selling my program and my books. That's why, I maintain the shape and condition I'm in. I'm not a bodybuilder, but I coach bodybuilders. So I try to stay in the best shape I can year round while not hurting my other activities, such as Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and Hatha Yoga and just overall health. But what I want to talk about in this video is the fitness trifecta, okay? So you have 3 pillars of growth. These are the 3 things you have to have in sync. If they are not being conducted properly, all simultaneously, any one of those links in the chain being weak will cause the whole system to falter. So what are they? Training and nutrition are at the bottom. They're the 2 most important things, your training and your nutrition. At the top of the pillar is going to be your recovery. All right. And that's where, and so the single most effective recovery is sleep. All right. I heard UFC lightweight champion Khabib Nurmagomedov talk about the most important aspect of recovery, and you'll see this with pro fighters. I fought professionally, is we typically train in the morning and evening. In between those 2 sessions, taking a nap will do more for your recovery than even steroids. All right. Essentially, that's mostly what all steroids do. But even the increase in protein synthesis for muscle growth, that's recovery. All right. So drugs are speeding up your ability to recovery, allowing you to train harder and more often. All right. So that's why I put them in the category of recovery. That's their main aspect. All the benefits of them are tied to recovery. So and what is recovery? The training is where you go into the gym and you train, which I'm going to talk about in this video, how to train properly. You go in and you break the muscle tissue down. You provide it sufficient enough stimulus to where the body says, oh, I need to grow to be able to take on these loads of weights, this intensity and this volume. And those are the 2 levers you have to pull from when it comes to training, is an intensity and volume. I'm going to talk more about it later in this video, but the main mistake people make in the gym is they are not training intense enough, and they're training too high of volume, frequency, meaning they're doing too many sets in the gym and they're training too often. They're in the gym too long and they're not taking enough rest days. Remember, you only go into the gym to tear the muscles down so that when you rest, they recover and build back stronger. If you're not giving yourself the sufficient rest, it's like constantly digging a hole deeper and deeper and not backfilling it. You're just going to have a yard full of holes. You're not going to have an even landscape yard. All right. You have to fill the holes you've dug into your muscles back up through the process of recovery. This is how hypertrophy happens. All right. Now, one little caveat with that is steroids, from your testosterone, your anabolics to your androgens, they help increase hypertrophy. All right. Hypertrophy comes from working out and then recovering, and steroids help with that. Growth hormone actually helps with another process called hyperplasia. Hyperplasia, as I mentioned, is the creation of new muscle cells. That only comes from growth hormone, specifically growth hormone combined with insulin, which produces IGF-1, insulin-like growth factor. Now, the third pillar of this triangle is your nutrition. Think of it like this. It does not matter how hard you train and how many drugs you take. If you do not eat enough food, you are wasting both of those efforts. All right? Think of it like this. Think of the steroids like the match. You're striking a match, all right? You're not going to ignite fire unless you have sufficient oxygen, all right? You think of a car, all right? You don't just need fire, you need fuel and oxygen, all right? And so, once again, you see this dynamic of three take place. And that's the same with muscle growth, all right? You have to eat sufficient enough calories for your training stimulus and your drug use to take place. Now, if you're not taking any steroids or drugs, this is still the same. It applies just the same. I include this in for those who are taking them. All right. In fact, if you're not using drugs, it's even more important that you push the food to push growth. All right. Food is the most anabolic thing you can take. If I had the choice between eating higher calories or just slightly above maintenance level and taking all the drugs in the world, I promise you, I have tried it time and time again with myself and clients. Food is way more effective. High amounts of food. So I talked about how the biggest mistake people make in the gym is not training intense enough and training too much volume. The biggest mistake people make in nutrition is they're not eating enough. When it comes to muscle growth, obviously not fat loss. All right. And it's just so simple, guys. You're not growing, then you're not eating enough. It's that simple. If you're not growing, it always comes down to you are not eating enough. Not growing, eat more. Still not growing, eat more. It's that simple, yet people complicate it. People come to me time and time again, and I did this when I was younger too. Oh, but I am eating a lot. Well, if you're not growing, then you're not eating enough. Obviously, it takes more for you, okay? I'm a hard gainer, always have been. I have to eat more in order to push my body to grow. It doesn't grow easy like it does for some people. Now, I'm going to go over A to Z exactly how I ate, how I trained, and even what I took to regain this muscle mass. So, starting with the training, the most effective training style is referred to as HIIT or high intensity training. All right, this was first formulated by Arthur Jones. Then Mike Mentzer came and added to it. The biggest thing, and everyone I see on YouTube and social media gets this wrong about Mike Mentzer and HIIT training. They all talk about how he only said 1 set per exercise. And they joke about that and talk about how that's not true. That is completely wrong. You will never find a single place, and I've read Mike Mentzer's books, I've watched his lectures. He was the intellectual of bodybuilding way ahead of his time. He never prescribed that, ever. You won't find a single place where he said this. What he said was 1 set to failure per exercise. So what people are saying is, how do you just go in, first exercise and first set, go to failure without warming up? He never said that. He always said to properly warm up. Not only did he say this in his lectures and his books, but you can watch training videos of him training his clients, and he always warmed them up. So it really just depends on how strong you are. All right. Now, me personally, it only takes me 1 to 2 sets for most exercises to warm up. So let's say, all right, so my weakest point is my bench press. The most I've ever bench pressed is 255 pounds. All right. So if I go in and bench 135 on the first set, then I go bench 205 on the second set, then I can go to complete failure on my third set at 255. All right. Now, a stronger lift, like the strongest squat I ever had, was 550. Obviously, that would take another set or two. So it may take 3 or 4 warm up sets before I go and hit that all out set to failure. Okay. So he never said 1 set per exercise. It's 1 set to failure. And that's the important set. It's the set to failure or even beyond with assisted reps, partial reps, etc., that really elicit the growth. We know this from the research. He was right. Now, after him came Dorian Yates, the greatest bodybuilder of all time. Really, the only argument you can make is Ronnie Coleman being better. Short of Ronnie Coleman, we know Dorian Yates was the best because not only was he the Mr. Olympia from, I believe, 92 to 97, but that was the most competitive years of bodybuilding. Not only did he come in 90 and 92 around then and completely change the game, that was his nickname, the game changer, because he brought a huge surplus of muscle mass that no one had ever seen and conditioning. So he came in with more muscle mass and more conditioning, unlike anything seen before, anything seen since, short of only Ronnie Coleman, all right, who was a genetic freak, all right? And the fact that Ronnie was such a genetic freak really only adds to Dorian Yates actually being the best because it was harder for him. He didn't have the genetics Ronnie Coleman did, so he relied on smarter training, etc. So to me, while there was great info from Arthur Jones and Mike Mentzer, really it was Dorian Yates that really cleaned it up and brought out the best version of HIIT training. All right. So what HIIT training refers to is 1 set to failure per exercise. Doesn't matter how many warm-ups it takes. Warm up however you need to, whatever the minimum effective warm-up is required to safely perform your set to failure. Okay? Now, I'm going to tell you why, besides Dorian Yates being the proof in the pudding itself being enough proof, I've tried it with myself and all my clients, all right? Now, I just want you to think about this logically here. If it takes me, on average, like I said, just 2 sets of warm-ups, so 3 sets per exercise, I'm usually good after 1 to 2 warm-up sets to go to failure on the third set. Let's compare that to the, let's say, German volume training where you're doing 10 sets per exercise. And let's say you're doing 10 exercises per workout. We're talking the difference between 30 sets and 100 sets. Now, I just want you to think about this logically. If you know you only have to do 3 sets per exercise, 30 total sets per workout, as opposed to 10 sets per exercise, 100 sets per workout. Which one do you think you are going to put more intensity into? You cannot go 10 sets to failure or 7 out of the 10 sets after your warm up to failure for 100 sets. That just is not doable. You will be overtrained and you're not going to make any progress. This is the number one thing holding people back from making progress in their training. They are training way too much volume, not enough intensity. So, back to the digging the hole analogy. The deeper the hole, the more you have to backfill it. All right, which means more recovery time. All right, so that means it should actually be the less often you work out. But this is not what you see with people that do volume training. They actually work out more often, which makes the whole volume training even worse and less effective. All right, so once you go to failure, why would you go and train any more sets? You already failed. You already went as far as you completely go with it. Any point past that is actually holding your progress back. And again, when it comes to rest days, Mike Mentzer said when he won the Mr. Olympia in 1980 in the heavyweight class, he was training 3 hours a week. All right. So this was 3 to 4 sessions, 40 minutes to an hour apart, where his opponents that he beat were training 3 hours a day. They were training longer in one day than he was all week, and he had better progress because of what I'm explaining to you. You get more out of intensity than volume because you only grow and recover when you're resting. So you have to have those rest days. All right. So when you train, you do a workout and you do it to failure. If you have delayed onset muscle syndrome like me, where you don't get sore until not the next day, but the following day, then you can do 2 workout days in a row and then take a rest day. If you're sore the very next day, then you would do 1 workout one day and rest the next day. All right. It just depends on how you recover. But basically, you don't go back into that gym until you were recovered. People talk about switching up the muscle groups each day. So therefore, no matter how hard I trained, say a push day like my chest, shoulders, and triceps, it doesn't matter how beat I am into the ground, I should be able to do the legs the next day. Not true. What you're not factoring into consideration there is it's not just your muscles that have to recover, it's your central nervous system. Think about when you do a heavy leg day with squats or back day with deadlifts. Do you notice that you are more drained from that than, say, if you do smaller muscle groups like arms? That's because you have taxed your central nervous system more. All right. So high intensity training, I've seen it the 10 years I've been coaching, is much more effective. And this is especially true for beginner to intermediate lifters and natural lifters who aren't using drugs to help them in their recovery. All right. It's the best training for everyone, but that especially for those groups. You cannot do high volume and get great results, period. But especially if you're training naturally or you're relatively new. All right. And the other benefit to high intensity training for the advanced lifter who's even on gear is that lifter is able to recruit more muscle fibers in an exercise because of his experience and mind muscle connection. So HIIT training is the best way to train. Nutrition, 1 gram per pound of body weight. All right. Protein. You need 1 gram per pound of body weight. So if you weigh 200 pounds, you need a minimum of 200 grams of protein from quality protein sources such as meat and eggs. All right. Plant protein is not equivalent to meat and eggs. The amino acid profile is much inferior. All right. So not only does the amount of protein matter, but even more important is the quality of that protein. You're always going to want to keep your fats at about 20 to 25%. You don't want to go below 20% fats because you need that minimum effective dose of healthy fats in your diet. All right. So the animal fat, grass-fed butter, maybe a little bit of olive oil. All right. Things of this nature. Egg yolks being one of the most important things. Now, especially for the natural lifter, because testosterone is 99% by weight cholesterol. If you are not eating sufficient dietary cholesterol, which egg yolks are the best source for, then you're going to have poor testosterone production. You have good cholesterol and bad cholesterol. All right. So good cholesterol being HDL, bad cholesterol being LDL. All right. Your bad cholesterol does not come from eating dietary cholesterol. This is the myth. It's actually made mostly within the body. All right. So do not avoid eating cholesterol. It's very important for your health and your muscle gains. Carbohydrates and a fat loss phase, you want to keep low, as carbs are what convert to body fat. And in a growth phase, as long as you're lean enough and you have good insulin sensitivity, then you want to increase the carbs. Once you've met your 200 gram or 1 gram per pound of body weight protein requirement, from there you increase your calorie and you got your minimum 20 25% fats. From there, you scale your calories up with the carbohydrates. All right. That in a nutshell is how you eat, and you spread it through, minimum of 4 to 6 meals a day, and you can add in a few shakes there too. The advantage of the shakes, whey protein isolate, is that it's easier to digest, and so when you're eating a really high caloric diet, it's just easier as opposed to getting it all from food. All right, now that's how I ate, that's how I trained, that's how I always do. This is how I do my clients. The cycle, exactly what I took to put this mass on. Since this was a growth phase, I did a bulk. I was doing bulk compounds. All right. So one of the advantages I had is I just came completely off for 3 months. All right. So I wasn't on my normal 250 milligram therapeutic dose of testosterone replacement therapy. I'd been off, which resensitizes the androgen receptors. And so when I did go back on, I was more receptive to the gear. All right. What I started out with, all right, over this 3 month period was month one, 500 milligrams of testosterone cypionate with 250 milligrams of masteron, and anthate. The masteron was there to manage estrogen. I'm not estrogen sensitive. I don't get gyno or any of those symptoms, so I don't need an AI. I don't recommend AIs unless you absolutely need them. Say you're highly sensitive to gyno or estrogen sides, because one, you need a good amount of estrogen to grow, but two, AIs really tend to screw up your blood lipids. So it's best to not use them if you don't have to. If you do have to use it, the only one I recommend is aromasin, as the other ones, such as arimidex and particularly letrozole, will just kill your estrogen. And you're going to feel like shit and you're not going to grow well. So if you're not sensitive to estrogen, Masteron, another one, Primobolan, are good enough at managing estrogen. The Masteron works as a SERM, selective estrogen receptor modulator. All right. So that was my base on month one with 50 to 100 milligrams of Anavar, 1 hour pre-workout. All right. Month two, I bumped it up to 750 milligrams of testosterone, cypionate. Again, half of that number dose for Masteron. And I switched to 50 to 100 milligrams of D-ball. Now, this third month, I bumped it up to 1,000 milligrams of testosterone cypionate with 500 milligrams of Masteron. And what I've been taking is mint, trustolone acetate, about 6 hours or so, 6 to 8 hours pre-workout. All right. This was one of the very few compounds I never tried, so I decided to try it. It's 20 times as anabolic as testosterone. I literally just started it, so it's too soon for me to really give you a good review on this. So I will make a video later on it. But this is what I took, guys. All right. Obviously, since I just bumped up to the 1 gram of test, 500 mast, and added the trust alone, that hasn't even kicked in yet. So um, this nearly 50-pound resurgence and muscle mass really came from a maximum of 750 milligrams of test and about 350 Masteron with just some D-ball pre-workout. All right. It doesn't take much. You don't need a lot of gear, some more than others. The main drivers of growth are the high intensity training and the high surplus of food. So anyway, guys, as always, thank you for watching. Please like and subscribe the video and comment below to help the algorithms give you this content for free. And that's the best thing you can do for me to help the algorithms of the channel. Also, comment below any video topics you'd like me to cover in my upcoming videos. And my book, my new one, which is how to properly cycle every steroid, growth hormone, insulin, and all your ancillaries and health steps. I go over all of it. And if you purchase it, whenever I update it with a new volume, you'll get that sent to you for free. And you can ask me questions with the purchase of the book. And as always, I'm always coaching. And so if you're interested in online coaching and having your customized meal and training plans written up and coach through the process, just, comment below or contact me on social media. Links are in my bio. Thank you for watching.